Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Caroline Heward and I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. Our show today is Talking Heads and I'm an expert presenter in today's topic, which is managing chaos in turbulent times. I chose this topic because we are having a very chaotic and turbulent time in the world today. And it's part of the Mind and Body Connection series. So let's begin. Turbulent. I want to start with, what do we mean by that? What does turbulent mean? So I looked it up because I like to look at things to find out what the meanings are so that we set the scene for this particular episode. And I read, turbulent means chaotic, disordered, characterized by conflict. And when you consider that as a meaning, it really sheds light on what's been happening in our current times. The fact that there is lots of war worldwide in different countries. There is civil unrest. There is a chaos and disorder in the politicians' world, in our politics, in our economics, inflation, our financial systems. And it's also in our global uncertainty about where our world is going. And there are many issues that are being debated in our current times: education, the weather systems, the political systems, and the economic systems, the financial systems. A lot of it is breaking down. We're human, and we're also having a human experience. So how does that affect us when all of these systems that are globally characterizing our world are affecting us? Well, those systems will create some challenges for us personally. So there might be home moves. I've done a home move in our recent times and sold my property and bought a new one that had all of its own challenges in its own right, which was also impacted by what was happening globally and locally in our local economics and our local politics. When I set about deciding to sell my home and managed to sell it, when I put it on the market in August of last year, the Queen died within weeks of me putting it on the market. And so that globally, certainly in the UK, affected things. And it also affected the way that the politics was going. And then we had a change in political structure, a new person, and then that changed the economics. So in our personal lives, our global economic situation and global macro things will affect and can affect you in your personal lives. So there can be job changes, and certainly in our change time since March 2020, there's been many jobs and professions that have disappeared and many different professions that have appeared and many different types of ways of working, there is now a new way of working in terms of working much more online and much more from home and not necessarily having to go into the office. And also these changes that we're experiencing have affected our personal lives in terms of our relationships, our families, and also it has bore the brunt of sickness, unwellness, and the biggest challenge of all for many people that I have been witnessing across the board in all age ranges, mental health issues such as anxiety, fear, depression, and also a very, very deep level root cause of a lot of these things are the fact that we are in fear. There is a global fear around in terms of how things are operating. When I was much younger, and growing up in the 70s and 80s, even though there was turbulent times, there was always, from my perspective, a career structure. There was a way. The education system had been the same for a long time. And also the way that your career progressed was very much there. And now all those systems that I certainly grew up in, a lot of those certainties have become uncertain. And when we are feeling uncertain about what's happening and what's going to happen in our future, that can create fear. Now, fear affects the root chakra, which is your foundation and your stability. When your foundation is affected, that creates challenges in the immune system, the blood system, the skeletal system, the skin system, and also the nervous system, as well as affecting your feeling that you have a right to be here, sort of a right to be present in the way that you're appearing and the way that you are showing up in the world. And so if you imagine that the root chakra, it's at the base of the spine where it meets the genital area. This is the root chakra, and this is our support system and our foundation that makes us feel stable. Now, if fear is the saboteur of the root chakra, which is where the adrenal gland is, when fear comes into play, this affects all those things I've just mentioned. Now, when we are in fear, we go straight up into the mind and start creating scenarios. And when things like that happen, we are then living in our mind and not living in reality. And that space of living through our mind is where anxiety, stress, depression, and physical, emotional, mental ache and pain reside. And when you are living through the mind, you are existing rather than living. And in our current turbulent times, there is many people that are living in the mind in terms of experiencing high levels of anxiety, stress, and depression. So why is that? Why has it happened that we're living in the mind? Now, we were born sensory, and when we are in the sensory experiences, there is no mind. I promise you, there is absolutely no mind. And when we move into the mind, the sensory of feeling and emotion gets shut down. Now, I have many conversations with people, and I had a conversation such as this with a friend that had reached out to me that I'd not probably spoken to for about 10 years. And he was describing what he's been doing in the last 10 years and how his life has changed and what he's been getting up to in terms of work and the changes he has experienced. I didn't realize it had been that long, but one of the things that we both agreed upon is that, one, the world has changed, and two, we've had to adjust. We've had to, in the words of, I've seen lots of people using the word pivot. We've had to move with the times and pivot, change how we are showing up and doing what we do in terms of our lives personally and professionally. And when you are in that space of adapting to huge change, it can cause chaos for people in terms of being able to support themselves and be able to survive as well as thrive. If you consider that we are bombarded with tons of media messages, we have media messages coming from all angles everywhere, from all different media platforms such as social media and written platforms such as the press, newspapers, magazines, books, as well as the overriding one where we are now on YouTube, and we are also on different TV platforms. And a warm welcome to our viewers on E360 TV, as this program, this episode, is brought to you in partnership with E360 TV. So we are on many different platforms, and we are getting all sorts of messages, and we're bombarded with messages from everywhere, which can create overwhelm. And when you are in overwhelm, this is where you can move into a space of anxiety if you're thinking about what next and future things, and depression if you are focused on past issues. Now, when we consider how we value our lives and we are in that place of anxiety and depression, I've spoken to many young people, particularly because I wonder how they're coping. And I had a conversation on Monday with someone that was on the train, and he said he was 24 years old. And he was talking about the fact that he was vaping. And I had an interesting exchange with this particular person, because he shared that you're going to die from something, so I may as well die happy vaping. And I was really stunned by that, because I shared with him a story about one of my friends that was struggling to breathe, and he got to accident and emergency and was seen fairly quickly. And he was told very clearly that if he wasn't seen at that time, that he would have died, that his lungs would have been flooded with the over-breathing that he was doing on the vaping. And it shocked him. He was very, very upset. He was asking publicly for healing from people, and then he was given that as a diagnosis. So this person was very, very lucky to be alive. And I shared that with this particular person I was sitting next to. And he said, I know of these stories and I know this is true, but I don't care. I'm going to die anyway. And that made me think and have an absolute eye-opener from the fact that he didn't value his life. And this is what I am seeing very much now, that even though we know something's not good for us, we seem to keep going down that route of self-destruction. Why is that? Why is it that we're on a point of self-destruct? And this is an escape mechanism. This is how some people strategize how to escape from the chaos of our turbulent times. And so vaping, recreational substances, alcohol, smoking, food, just to name a few things that people are turning to find a way out of the chaos and turbulence. And this actually tells me that this is a much bigger problem than just what we think it is. It's not about the conflict externally and the macroeconomic environment. It's not just about the fact that one politician is in and people aren't happy about the things that he's decided to put into place, and another person is unhappy about something that's happened with their job. It's not about that particularly and only. It's about the fact that we are not happy globally in our lives. And I'm not saying that every single person isn't. What I'm doing is generalizing that as a global consciousness, there is a lot of very low vibration negativity. And in that space of that low vibration negativity, there is turbulence, and there is fear, and there is anxiety, and there is a place where people are saying they're not happy anymore. And so they're escaping, they're finding ways to escape. I wanted to paint the picture so that you had some idea about the spectrum and the level of the depth of how our turbulent, chaotic times are affecting us. I've seen many people begin relationships because they've been drawn closer, especially in times of when we were locked down. And then that particular relationship has broken apart because the reasons are not there anymore. And that honeymoon period isn't there in the same way that it used to be because they've gone back to normality. And because it's not there anymore, there's a change in priority, a change in circumstance, and a change in situation. And sometimes we find it very difficult to handle that change. Excuse me. So my invitation and my suggestion is to focus on what you can change rather than what you can't. You can't change the politicians. You can't change the macroeconomic environment. And you can't change the fact that there are war zones in different countries globally. You can change how you respond to things. You can change how you react to things. And my invitation is to move into a place where you can look at things that you can change and the things that you are in control of. And one of the reasons that we're feeling turbulent in our current times is because we are focused on what we have got no control over. That we feel somehow that we have to do something to gain some control. And certainly there's been a lot of civil unrest, certainly in the UK in recent weeks and in other countries, of people feeling very dissatisfied with what's happening and what's changed and what they don't feel in control of. And that might be a course of action that makes them feel good at the time, but then it leads to destruction of things, people's properties, and it also leads to a war internally, an internal war of discomfort and conflict. So the conflict is external, and then you start to feel a huge conflict internally. And so my invitation for you is to focus on things that you can change and that you are in control of, and become agile in terms of finding a space within to become adaptable and to adapt to the changes that you are finding yourself in, whether it's a change in your personal circumstances, in a relationship, in your finances, or whether it's a change in the way that you're working. I certainly have started doing more work, and I do more work online now than I ever did previously. And I was very afraid of working online and being on a TV show. Didn't think that I was able to do that kind of work because I didn't feel that I had enough to give on live TV. I've managed and rode the change and adapted and become flexible. And this is where you will thrive, when you become flexible. When you become inflexible, it then narrows what's possible for you. And this in turn creates more chaos, because when you are focused on what you can't do, you will create more of what you can't do. And so my invitation here is to be proactive in what you can change, because in that space of being proactive, you can make a difference to the way that you manage the chaos in our turbulent times. Because remember, there is chaos and turbulence in our external world, and we can, if we choose, take it on and become chaotic and turbulent in our internal world, in our personal, private world. When we close our door and when we're in our own four walls, we can create that turbulence. So I want to look at a little bit about how this type of turbulence and chaos can affect you physically, emotionally, mentally, and behaviourally. And I want to look at the vagus nerve. Now, the organs that affect the vagus nerve are the thorax and the abdomen, and they control the parasympathetic nervous system, the outflow to the heart and the gastrointestinal organs. It also affects the heart, the cardiac, and the branches that arise from the heart and the thorax, which conveys the parasitic nervous system. Now, that all sounds like a lot of jargon, but essentially what I've focused on here is how it affects you in your life. So how does the vagus nerve create anxiety, and what does that anxiety feel like? When you have lived through some level of trauma, and what I mean by that is trauma can be categorized in all sorts of ways. And many people have experienced trauma in our changed world times. Even though we may not be in a war-torn country, we are still being impacted and affected by what's happening globally. And even though we may not have been sick, we may not have had a relationship breakdown, we are still impacted by sickness, the mental health issues, and we are affected by what's happening in our families, our personal lives, as well as our work. And so trauma can be on the spectrum of many things. And many people suffered traumatic experiences when our world changed in 2020, and when they were locked down in their homes. And the term lockdown, I didn't even know what it meant. And then suddenly I started hearing that term in all sorts of films and dramas. And I was really surprised, because it was a word that I wasn't familiar with. And suddenly I started hearing the word. And the term lockdown is one that incites a traumatic experience for some people, to be isolated, to be away from their social environments, their friends, their families. And this can be, for some people, very traumatic. It certainly was for me, in becoming very isolated and not being able to socialize and go out, as I lived alone. So when the vagus nerve is overactive, it then manifests in anxiety. It also manifests in irregular mood swings, and it has symptoms like nausea, bowel problems, and random pains in the body. So this vagus nerve, which affects the nervous system and the parasympathetic system, is a big deal for people, and it can create some untold problems physically as well as mentally. So The emotions that are associated with the vagus nerve are fear. So we need to manage our fear, because when we are in fear of things, that affects the root chakra, and that starts everything turning upside down because you don't feel safe. And when you don't feel safe and you're in fear of what might happen, what could happen, whatever you focus on creates. And that creates the challenges of the vagus nerve system breaking down and being out of kilter. So it's also linked to stress, anxiety, and the gut brain. And so when somebody says, I get a gut feeling about this, this is related to the vagus nerve. So when somebody is feeling very nervous, like butterflies, this is the vagus nerve in action. This is how it impacts us in terms of how we're experiencing life and how we're experiencing and responding and reacting in life. And it signals the stressful, and it signals from the stressful and scary situations that appear in our lives. So how do you know if you have a vagus nerve shutdown? Well, there are some really key indicators when you lose that, the shutdown of the vagus nerve system. And you will feel a level and a sense of a lack of motivation. Why am I here? What's the meaning of this? I may as well not bother. And this is what I am seeing, especially in our very young people, that they are not feeling that they want to be here. They're not valuing life and enjoying it. They are getting through life. And so this tells me that there is an imbalance in the vagus nerve. And also that they will feel depressed. The heart rate and the blood pressure will be affected, and they'll probably be breathing in a really shallow way. And they will have a sense of emotional detachment. And I want to just spend a little time in this space of emotional detachment. It'll almost be like you will feel desensitized, that things are happening, that they're happening around you, not to you. It's almost like you're not being affected by it, and you go into like a helicopter observational space. But you are in this fight flight where you've literally gone into flight, but you're still there and still experiencing, but this is a detached experience. And this is where you escape into the mind and escape into anxiety, depression, which is really not living, you are existing. There will be a feeling and a sense of withdrawal or being distant and struggling to engage with others and participate in daily routines and activities. So does this sound like somebody that you know, or does this sound like something that you've experienced? Does this sound like something that you are experiencing right now, or you know someone that's experiencing this level of detachment? There will be some imbalances in the vagus nerve, which is making them feel this way. So how does the vagus nerve affect bowel movements? Well, when I was doing some research, and I kind of consider that when I think about the fact that when you're anxious or when you're stressed, that the disorders of the bowel are very much in that place, like irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, diverticulosis. They're all in that place of when stress rears. And so it's not surprising that this gut heart effect is occurring. And it's the movement of the food going through the gut, and it's slow in its mobility. And when it's slow in the gut to transmit through, the time that it takes to go through creates constipation, because the stool dries, and the longer it's been in the large intestine, it dries more, which creates a constipation, which creates a defecation that's very difficult to handle and immense pain. And this is related to the vagus nerve not being able to cope with what's going on. So you can hear that there's lots of different things that the vagus nerve is responsible for in terms of our emotional, physical, mental health. And it's important to understand that it's not over. There are ways to manage and to move the vagus nerve into a place where it's going to make a difference and help you survive this place of stress, anxiety, depression in our chaotic and turbulent times. So there's some exercises that you can do to generate the vagus nerve and stimulate it. And when I share these with you, you'll be surprised how simple some of these are that you can do in your everyday without having to do too much else. I like to keep things simple, and at the same time, there are many, many things that you can do to stimulate the vagus nerve. And I'm just going to be sharing with you some things that will be easy to incorporate in your day. Gargling. And when you brush your teeth in the morning and in the evening, when you gargle, that stimulates the vagus nerve. In the evening and in the morning, that's twice a day, literally gargling with water, that can, in your normal everyday, make a difference to the vagus nerve. Singing. And it doesn't matter if you can't sing. It doesn't matter if you haven't got a note. It doesn't matter if you have got no idea. When you sing and you're singing a song that you love, it doesn't matter how you sound. That singing stimulates the vagus nerve. When you this is one of mine. When I sit there and I I feel different. There is something that happens when I am chanting the because I feel calmer, because it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, so I feel more at peace. Humming. If you hum, the vibration here in the throat affects the parasympathetic nervous system, and you will feel calmer. And anxiety, stress, depression can literally melt in that moment. So these are very simple things that you can do. So I want to look at something that's a little bit more advanced for some people that want to see how they could stimulate the vagus nervous system by doing a little bit more advanced work. Yoga. Now, if you are a yoga person and you don't mind doing a downward facing dog, this is going to stimulate your vagus nerve system. Child's pose and the fish pose also will stimulate your vagus nerve system. So let's look at something that's very simple. And it's something that I've used in some training courses that I've been on, and it's been really effective. And I call it the walking meditation. And if you're fearful of the word meditation, I'm going to take it out and say, go for a walk. And when you go for that walk, I want you to notice one small thing. And just notice it and name it internally in your internal dialogue. And then notice one large thing. Name it internally and move on to the next thing. And then notice something that's close to you. Name it and move on. And then notice something, one thing that is far away. Name it and move through the cycle to go through one small thing, one large thing, one thing that's close, one thing that's far away. And what this will do is it will change your perspective. It will clear the mind and you will feel much calmer. Because when you are, it makes you present, and when you become present to the surroundings and your environment, you become more peaceful and calm, and it calms down the mind. And this is so effective. And the results of doing this simple walk, rather than being in your mind thinking about 100 things that you should be doing, got to do, and what's happening in the political world, or what's happening in a different country, or what's happening in another town, you are in that present moment. You are in the moment of the moment that you are in. And when you are in that moment, everything else ceases to exist. And you will feel different. You will feel calmer and more peaceful. I'd also like to share with you the 3-3-3 rule for anxiety. And it's similar and different, but very, very effective. Name 3 things that you see in your environment, wherever you are, wherever you're sitting, if you're in the office, whether you're at home. And the 3 things, it could be a lamp, it could be a curtain hook, it could be a flower, a plant, it could be an ornament, whatever you see. And then name 3 things that you hear. So it could be water, the birds singing, it could be conversation, it could be a dog barking. So name 3 things, sounds that you hear. And the final part is move 3 parts of your body. So for instance, you could shake your head, you could shrug your shoulders, and you could roll your wrists. So move 3 parts of your body. Now, if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable and you're in the office and you're in an environment where lots of other people are around you, it's important that you have some privacy in this practice. So if you want to do this practice incognito, so people don't know what you're doing, you could smile as one of the moving parts of the body. You could take a deep breath, and you could also, which would affect raising the chest as you breathe in, and also raising and the chest falling. You could also tap your foot or tap your hand, tap your fingers on the desk, as long as you move 3 parts of the body. I trust that this episode has been helpful in being able to manage our chaotic and our turbulent times. I wasn't sure what I was going to focus on until I started preparing for this episode. And I felt that it was something that's not really known much about the vagus nerve. And at the same time, I felt it was so simple to do some of these things. And I trust that you have fun exploring, literally working at moving your vagus nerve into a space of stimulation. It has been my pleasure to deliver this episode for you today. Thank you for your attention and thank you for your interest. Please subscribe to USA Global TV and Radio. You can find all of our episodes on Talking Heads on USA Global TV and Radio. You'll find all of mine under my name and Talking Heads. Please reach out to me if I may be of service to you. You can reach me on nomorestress@live.co.uk or call if you're international +44. If you are local, 07523 120 189. And I look forward to helping you bust your stress. I also look forward to helping you break through the patterns that create your repeating experiences of how you experience your everyday stress, anxiety, and turbulence in your life. Thank you very much. Namaste.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents our partner and sponsor, Mr. Philip Sykes and the British School of Excellence. Building confidence, changing lives. And now, proudly presenting the Polished Professional.
On a transformative journey with the British School of Excellence's comprehensive suite of masterclasses, crafted to elevate your professional and personal life. 8 outstanding modules will elevate you to the next level. Module 1, Exploring Life's Purpose, delves into the depths of self-discovery, guiding you to chart your unique path to fulfillment and success. Module 2, Mastering Professional Presence and Confidence. This masterclass is a deep dive into the art of self-assurance and commanding presence, which is essential for standing out in today's competitive landscape. Module 3, Learn the secrets of visual impact, how to curate a personal style that amplifies your professional brand. Module 4, Mastering Professional Etiquette and Communication Excellence, navigating the nuances of corporate interaction with grace and tact. Module 5, Elegance in Eloquence. We impart powerful techniques to captivate and persuade any audience with your oratory skills. Module 6, Unlock the potential of your emotional intelligence, EQ, and harness the ability to connect, empathize, and lead with emotional savvy. Module 7, Mastering DISC, building a gateway to understanding behavioral styles, fostering better personal and professional relationships. Module 8, Mastery in Dining Etiquette, building your confidence to perfect the subtleties of dining with finesse, enhancing your social savviness at any table. Step into the Polished Professional program where poise, elegance, and excellence aren't just taught, they're instilled for life. Join us to redefine your potential and polish your professional edge.
To learn more, go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. The British School of Excellence are investors in people. Let us invest in you. 5 little-known secrets for dementia caregivers with Tracy Cram-Perkins.
Hi there, I am Tracy Cram-Perkins, the host of the Dementia Home Care Show here on USA Global TV and Radio. I am also the author of the book of the same name. And you'll see this QR code. This is for an extended version of this same talk. So if you want to see the full hour-long version, feel free to scan the code and go to that website. Stick with me. We'll talk about 5 little-known secrets to make it a little easier to do dementia caregiving. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. The one you're seeing on the right is an Alzheimer's disease brain. It is in moderate disease. It is shrinking. It has holes in it. The memories that were in those holes no longer exist. When you're learning something, let's say in kindergarten, you learn how to tie your shoelace. Well, then by the time you're in 2nd grade, your brain remembers that information from tying the shoelace and applies it so you can learn more quickly how to tie more complex knots. So the brain is hardwired to do this for us, so it helps us learn faster so it doesn't take us long to acquire knowledge. The brain is looking for the information and they pick the closest to wherever that hole is. Let's look at some tips that we can use to help do that.
These are 5 simple tools you can use as a dementia caregiver to help your loved one. The whiteboard is a useful tool in recording the day's activities and the answers to repetitive questions. The calendar clock is a very useful tool to orient your loved one on the day, the date, and the time, and remind them of upcoming appointments. The communication cards are a great tool to bridge the gap when they can no longer tell you what's wrong. And then there's the pill minder for when your loved one is still able to take pills but needs prompting. The final tool I want to share with you is the memory book. It tells your loved one's story. It's a great tool for distraction, redirection, also as a conversation starter, and telling you where they are in their story so you know how to answer their questions.
Music is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox after laughter. Music is a way to maintain connection. It sticks with your brain longer than any other thing, including reading. When you're having an issue with somebody, you can play their favorite music if you move them to another room, something that makes them happy, or you can start singing songs together from their childhood. These are some of my favorite books for caregivers. My show airs on the third Tuesday of every month, and you can view past episodes on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
This program has been brought to you in part by Tracy Cram Perkins. Connect with her and order her book at tracycramperkins.com. For more information about Alzheimer's disease, support resources, and how you can help, contact the Alzheimer's Association at 1-800-272-3900 or visit their website at www.alz.org. They offer 24/7 helpline support and a wealth of information to assist you and your loved ones. This program has been brought to you in part by Zane Carson Carruth, etiquette and protocol expert, international award-winning author, television show host, and philanthropist. Thank you to Zane, our official diamond sponsor for USA Global TV and Radio in partnership with E360 TV. Zane is the author of The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever, as well as many other children's books. She's also the television host of Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living, seen on USA Global TV and Radio.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Bella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, Bella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Bella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
To learn more about Zane, contact her through her website, zanecarruth.com, ZANECARRUTH.com. Order Zane's books and merchandise. Contact her about being a keynote speaker at your next event.